People around the world are rallying for action against gender-based violence and marking the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. In its latest report on femicide, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime estimate that around 83,000 women and girls were deliberately killed last year. More than half of those killings, they say, were committed by relatives or partners. The reality of gender-based violence was spotlighted this year by Gisèle Pelicot. The French survivor chose to waive her anonymity during the trial of her husband and dozens of other men who drugged and raped her for years. Kalliopi Mingeirou is chief of the UN Women's Ending Violence Against Women section, and she was one of the key contributors to the UN report on femicides. Welcome to DW. Your report shows no progress despite decades of commitments. What's going wrong?
We had some progress, especially in addressing some legal gaps that we had. For example, in many countries, the last decades, we had marital rape being criminalized, just to give you one example. But as we know, laws and policies being in place are not enough in order to address violence against women and girls. What we really need to see in order to see progress is that these laws, these policies, this awareness raising needs to be complemented with resources, with budget, in order to make sure that we enforce these laws and policies and to make sure that the police and the justice sectors, they have the skills and the capacity in order to address serious impunity of violence against women and girls.
Right, so if the UN has been operating this campaign for decades and those numbers aren't going down, well, does that indicate that perhaps you need to be changing your approach?
Having a campaign and raising awareness about violence against women and gender inequality is definitely a very key part of action in order to address violence against women and girls, but it is not enough. What we do as UN Women, we work with governments, with partners, with women's rights movements, with the private sector and other actors to make sure that we have the right laws and policies in place, to make sure that we address social norms, beliefs and practices that they consider this violence against women and girls is a normalized part of everyday life. And we make sure that we work with police and justice sectors to really offer access to justice to survivors. And in order to really see reduction of violence, it cannot be one actor, but we need to have different actors working together from different entry points to really address violence against women and girls and see reduction one day.
Tell us about the social norms, beliefs and practices you mentioned there that seem to legitimise this violence.
Very often what we see, it's very serious power imbalances between men and women, both at home, but in society more broadly. And this could really normalize violence against women and girls at home and more generally, and considering violence as an inevitable part of society that we cannot really do anything in order to address it. So in order to address these beliefs, these practices, we need to start early. We need to start at schools. We need to start with education of boys and girls to know how they can have respectful relationships with each other, to understand what consent means, and to make sure that they have the correct life skills in order to recognize abuse and in order to be able to address it and protect themselves.
Your campaign against violence against women, does that extend to the online space as well as what's happening in real life?
Digital violence right now with really the expanding nature of artificial intelligence is becoming a huge issue for women and girls around the world. And we know that digital violence is very much connected with other forms of violence in real life. It has real consequences for the lives of so many women and girls around the world. It can start with online harassment and stalking, and it can really get quickly escalated to threats, to real life harassment, and sometimes we have information that can even lead to femicide. So it's very, very important to address digital violence against women and girls. We have information right now that 90 to 95% of deep fakes, they are related to non-consensually shared images, sexually shared images of women and girls.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Kalliopi Mingeirou from UN Women's Ending Violence Against Women section.